Hello, you're watching Proactive London. I'm joined by Anthony Tennyson, the CEO of Graft Polymer UK PLC. Anthony, good to meet you. You've announced an operational review and a commercial collaboration with Awaken Life Sciences. Before we get into those, for viewers not familiar with the company, can you tell us a little bit about Graft Polymer UK PLC, please?
Sure, happy to. Good to meet you. Good to talk to you, Stephen, and good to get to talk to your audience today. So I'm Anthony. I'm a Chief Exec of Graft Polymer UK PLC. We're an innovative developer of biopolymer drug delivery systems. Our strategy is to assist biopharmaceutical companies improve the bioavailability, pharmacokinetics, and stability of their therapeutics, which we do by combining the active pharmaceutical ingredient in their therapeutics with our biopolymer drug delivery IP.
So your collaboration with Awaken follows an operational review that you first announced back in May 2023, Anthony. Can you take us through what the review is aimed at and why you selected Awaken for your first commercial collaboration?
Happy to, Stephen. It's a good question. So historically, Graft had a dual focus of industrial plastics and also then biopolymer drug delivery systems. For a number or a range of macroeconomic or macro issues, the industrial plastics business became economically challenged, which unfortunately dragged down the performance of the rest of the business. So the board initiated an operational review in Q2 this year. The first part of that focus, or the first focus, was to stabilize the business, which we did by unfortunately having to make the tough decision of exiting the industrial plastics business so that we could focus on the higher potential drug delivery business. We then refocused the business on that drug delivery segment with a specific focus in substance use disorder and mental health disorder treatment, which we believe has significant potential for value creation for our stakeholders. We then successfully recapitalized the business by completing a 1.8 million sterling recapitalization very recently. And now we are moving forward to grow the business. And the way that we've chosen to grow the business is by selecting a limited number of partners with whom we can collaborate with on a commercial basis to help them improve the performance of their therapeutics and grow our own business. And following an extensive process, the board selected Awaken Life Sciences. And we did that, and the board did that for a number of reasons, Stephen. The first one was the quality of their team, particularly their chief scientific officer, the world-renowned Professor David Nutt. The second reason was the quality of their science. The asset and the program that Graft is investing into was developed for Awaken by the world-leading drug development and discovery company Evotec. And thirdly, and really, really very importantly, is the quality and depth of Awaken's pipeline. What many people may not know, or your audience may not know, is Awaken actually have a late clinical stage program targeting addiction starting in the UK in the very near term. And that's been executed in combination with the University of Exeter, so a high-level institution in the UK, and the UK Department of Health, and being delivered in the NHS. So what we get in Graft is we get to invest in a high potential preclinical asset that's being informed by a high potential late clinical stage trial that's being co-funded by the UK Department of Health.
Anthony, can you expand maybe on what the collaboration with Awaken will involve?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. So the asset that we're investing into is a high potential asset with potential in treating trauma-related disorders like PTSD. Awaken have completed early stage preclinical work. And so what we're now looking to do is to co-invest to progress and complete some other preclinical stage work in order to hopefully progress the asset forward through to lead optimization and as rapidly as possible, subject to regulatory approval, into the clinic. And what this means for Graft's shareholders is for a relatively modest investment. Graft has secured 40% of the future net income, subject to further work, in a high potential asset that has potential in indications with large addressable markets. So, for example, PTSD, unfortunately, that affects 13 million Americans and about 20 million people when you bring in EU Big Four and UK. And when we look at the wider substance use and mental health disorder segment, And the markets are significantly improving for that segment, with a significant amount of capital being deployed, particularly in the North American markets for companies operating in that segment. A peer, actually, of Awaken was bought by Otsuka for about 50 million US, or about around 50 million sterling last year. Similar peer companies to Awaken have raised between 50 and 100 million US over the last number of quarters, and some larger companies operating in that space have raised between 100 and 250 million US over the last number of quarters. And very importantly, one of the key things for us is big pharma are active in this space, with J&J's mental health therapeutics Spravato on track to be a blockbuster drug either this financial year or next financial year. So we think that the benefit, the potential benefit for Graft shareholders is interesting and material.
What's the next steps, Anthony?
And the next steps for us are to progress as rapidly as possible through those preclinical stage research programs to hopefully, with Awaken and with Professor David Nutt, declare a lead series from within that aminoindane series, and then subject to regulatory approval and potentially further investment, rapidly progress towards the clinic and ultimately seek to improve outcomes for individuals, families and communities who are suffering with trauma-related mental health disorders.
Anthony, I hope you'll keep us posted on any progress. Thank you very much for the introduction and update today.
Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure.
That's Anthony Tennyson, the CEO of Graft Polymer UK PLC.